Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and on today's episode of What Vehicle Should I Buy, we are actually talking about a vehicle for me. I will give an update on the wife's vehicle search in this video as well, and there is something that I do need to mention, and that is the fact that I will be talking about the Lexus GX550 because I know I'm going to get a bajillion comments about the Lexus GX550. I will talk about it in today's video, but as always, before we get into the video, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. So I think we should start off by discussing how we got to this point where I'm even talking about deciding between these two vehicles for myself personally. So right now we own quite a few vehicles, too many vehicles in my personal opinion. We've got two of them right here. So one of them is this pink Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. The other one is this azure gray Ford Bronco Raptor. Now the Wrangler 392 is a vehicle that my wife and I share. The Bronco Raptor is my daily driver, and then my wife has a Land Rover Defender as a daily driver. And then I do still own the green GT350 Mustang. I've been trying to sell it. It's the winter time. It's hard to sell a sports car in the winter, so I still own that car, but it's kind of out of the garage in the sense of once I can get rid of it, I'm going to get rid of it. And in terms of, things from an enthusiast perspective, this garage is perfect. But when it comes to reliability, if you follow the channel, you know that things have not been perfect. So the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 has been absolutely bulletproof. We've had no issues with it. It's a 2022. It's got almost 10,000 miles on it. The Bronco Raptor had a dead battery at like 900 miles, and then the Defender has had three major issues, in my personal opinion, in the first year and 10,000 miles. The power steerings went out twice, and then the coolant lines needed to be replaced when we took it in for our yearly maintenance. And so it's like, yeah, again, not the worst thing on the planet, but at the same time, if it has those issues in only 10,000 miles in 1 year, what's going to happen when it's at 20, 30, 40,000 miles? And this now puts my wife and I in a area where we want to have stuff that's more reliable. Now, for me personally, I get a lot of press cars from the manufacturers to test out. I'm going to be getting my next cycle of press cars starting next month. So I'm not as concerned about myself personally, but for my wife, obviously, I think that reliability is really important. And so if you guys follow the channel, you know that we posted some videos of looking at different cars, and I was surprised, to say the least, at what my wife chose. So we looked at the Lexus GX460, we looked at the Lexus LX600, we looked at the Toyota Land Cruiser, we looked at a Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro, and then we can't look at the Lexus GX550, but because I review cars and because I have a pretty good idea of what things are going to look like, I was able to explain what the car is going to be like to my wife, and she chose the Land Cruiser. She absolutely loves the Land Cruiser, like everything about it, how it looks, the interior, how it drives, and obviously the proven reliability of that. So that is the car that my wife wants. However, with her particular car situation, we can't trade in her Defender until her Defender is fixed. Dealerships have gotten burned by Land Rovers quite a bit over the last year. Basically, what will happen is someone will trade in a new relatively new Land Rover that's still covered under manufacturer warranty, but if something breaks on it, the chances of that dealer being able to get that car fixed is extremely low. Most dealers don't have mechanics that are able to work on these Land Rovers because they're so complicated. So they have to send it to a Land Rover dealership, and Land Rover dealership service departments are typically backlogged by at least a month, sometimes 2, 3, 4 months. And so for car dealers, if they get a Land Rover traded in, it better be perfect or they aren't interested, because if a dealer can't sell a car for 4 months while it's getting fixed, they are guaranteed, especially on a Land Rover that doesn't hold its value all that well, they're guaranteed to lose money. So all that really means is my wife has decided what she wants, a Toyota Land Cruiser, and we just have to wait until her Defender is out of the shop for us to be able to, find the right Land Cruiser and then make that vehicle trade. And so this leads us over to my situation. So I ordered a G550 G Professional G Wagon about, I think like 6-ish months ago. It might have been a little bit, I can't exactly remember on the timeline, but I got a notification that my order is not going to happen. Mercedes has decided to cut the 2024 model year for G550s short. And so that means that if I wanted one, I would have to wait till 2025. Now, everything that I've read online and everything that I've heard from people that are in the know is that 2025 is not going to be a year of V8s for the G550. They're getting rid of the V8 and they're going to a turbocharged inline 6. And I'm sure that as soon as I say turbocharged inline six and G Wagon, a lot of you are gonna go, ooh, that's exactly what I did. I just instantly cringed. I was like, it's not a G Wagon if it doesn't have a V8. I know that some people at Mercedes are probably gonna get offended by that because they're releasing the fully electric G Wagon and they're releasing this inline six, again, most likely releasing this inline six G Wagon, but like, again, G Wagon and V8, like that's just how that, or unless it's a diesel. If it's a diesel, it's a little bit of a different story, but if it's not a diesel, it's gotta be a V8. And so this puts me in a situation where a vehicle that I thought that I had ordered, I don't actually have ordered. Again, completely out of my control, completely out of the dealer's control. It's up to Mercedes. They just decided they didn't want to build as many 2024s as they originally thought, or maybe this was the plan all along. I have no clue. And so here's the situation that I'm in. I could find a leftover 2024. There are some available. And so that is something that I have been considering. But at the same time, the problem with me purchasing a leftover 2024 is I'm going to be buying a vehicle that is not what I personally want. The vehicle that I ordered, again, G Professional, is the off-road package on the G Wagon, and I ordered it with no options. I basically wanted as base as I could get of a car with the off-road package because I'm an off-road enthusiast. Whereas all of the G550s that are on the market are basically fully loaded with every single option, like the super fancy leather, the suede headliner, all of that stuff that I do not care about, and then they don't have the off-road package. And so, from my perspective, it feels like I'd be paying a bunch of extra money for stuff that I don't care about. And so this is what leads us into the Land Cruiser. So again, we looked at a bunch of cars, and I had, a very similar impression to my wife. Now, I've reviewed several Land Cruisers over the last year, and so I have a pretty good idea of how they drive. But getting into one again, I was just like, I really like this vehicle. And so I started looking on the used market for myself and obviously for my wife with the Land Cruisers, and I found that the prices in the Land Cruisers are still expensive, but first off, they're way more reasonable than a G Wagon, and they are way more reasonable than what they were over the course of the pandemic. Over the course of the pandemic, Land Cruisers were like over $100,000 for the 2020s and the 2021s, especially if it was a Heritage Edition. Whereas now, unless people are smoking a whole lot of who knows what, they are in the $70,000 to $80,000 range, which again is still a lot of money, but I mean, that's below original MSRP. I reviewed a couple of last year Land Cruisers, and both of them, one was a Heritage, one was a non-Heritage. I actually went and watched the reviews just to double check. Both of them stickered for $90,000, and so with Land Cruisers now selling below original MSRP, again, for a last year for the V8 Land Cruiser in the US market, like, it's expensive, but it's definitely more reasonable than it has been because it's not above original MSRP. And so at this point, you might be thinking, okay, G Wagon probably doesn't make sense for you, Ben, because you don't care about the luxury features and you won't be able to find one that fits your needs, and the 2025 model year is not going to have a V8. And then with the Land Cruiser, you're probably thinking, well, that sounds really cool, but that's really close in price to the new Lexus GX550, and don't you worry, I have thought about that. So we were originally going to order a GX550 for my wife, but with this vehicle situation, my wife has changed what she wants in a vehicle. She was okay with the Lexus because it was going to be more, again, most likely more reliable than the Defender. But because of the issues with the Defender, she wants to go like all in on reliability. And so then that would leave it to me if I still wanted the GX550. My problem personally with the GX550, first off, before I say my problem, I want to say that I think that this is going to absolutely do fantastic on the market. It looks great on the outside. It's got really good off-road specs. It's got a great powertrain. The interior is fantastic, and it's extremely reasonably priced for what it is. But Lexus has decided to put a lot of cool technology in the new GX and some of their other new models. And I don't know about the long-term reliability of some of this technology. And I'm talking about stuff like they have like a fancy sunroof that can go opaque in the GX. They've got a new infotainment system that I've discovered is extremely expensive to replace if it needs to be replaced. And some of these infotainment systems, from what people have told me, have had to be replaced. And so I'm thinking about keeping this car. Again, I talked about this with the G Wagon. I'm thinking about keeping this car for the next 5 to 10, maybe 15 years. And so replacement cost of certain parts that are very important for the car's use, like the infotainment system in the GX, because everything's controlled in the infotainment system pretty much, is something that I'm going to be taking into consideration. And so putting it all together, it's kind of a silly situation, but it's the situation that I'm in because the vehicle that I ordered that I thought I was going to do content with on the channel for you guys, it's not coming in anymore. And so let me know what you guys would do. Again, I'm considering keeping this vehicle for at least 5 years, if not 10, 15 years. And so I know a lot of people are going to say Land Cruiser because it has, proven reliability, but the G Wagons with the 4-liter V8 have been shown to be really reliable as long as you maintain them properly. Now, my concern when it comes to the G Wagon reliability is just how much is it going to cost to keep it running? Like that's something that I definitely have a concern with. And then, you know, the infotainment system on the G Wagon, I'm not as concerned with that as the Lexus, believe it or not, because it's not a touchscreen and it's been in Mercedes for quite some time, that infotainment system. And so I think they've had a chance to work out most of the quirks with that system. Whereas, let me just tell you the pricing on this. You guys are probably going to like have your mind blown when you hear this. The infotainment system in the new Lexus model, so I'm talking about the one that's basically the big touchscreen, which has like the climate controls that are part of the screen. It's like $15,000 to replace if it breaks. And then the digital gauge cluster, I might be off on this by a little bit, but I think it's like $5,000 plus to replace that. And again, I'm not saying that they will break, but it's something that you have to think about in these modern cars when you're thinking about keeping a car for the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. And so let me know what you guys think. I am like leaning more towards the Land Cruiser side of things because I know I can trust the powertrain. Like with the G Wagon, I feel like I can trust the powertrain, maybe can trust the infotainment system. With the Lexus, I would feel like I could trust the powertrain, can't trust the infotainment system. That's just kind of my take on it right now. Again, just based on what I've heard, I hope that that opinion changes in the future. Whereas, yeah, with the Land Cruiser, I feel like I can trust everything in it. I don't have any stress about the powertrain, the gauge cluster, the infotainment system. Again, any of that stuff that could break in the next 10 plus years. And again, the pricing on the Land Cruisers, it's more reasonable than it has been. But what I will say, the only thing in my personal opinion that does go against the Land Cruiser is the people trying to sell them. The people that are trying to sell Land Cruisers haven't come back down to reality in terms of what the values are at. Just to give you guys an idea of where these Land Cruiser people can be at, I looked at a Land Cruiser and it was posted online for over $90,000. Now, I can look up wholesale values and retail values because I know a bunch of different dealers, and so I had those values pulled for me. The wholesale value on this Land Cruiser was $81,000, so that's what a dealer would pay as a trade-in for this Land Cruiser. The retail value, full-on retail, if it was in perfect condition, everything was the best, was $89,000. And this person was asking, so over, you know, retail. And that's what I've noticed with a lot of these Land Cruisers, regular and heritage, is dealers and private sellers are all asking above retail because they haven't realized that the market's pulled back even more on these Land Cruisers. And so that's the only thing going against them is it's hard to find a good deal on a Land Cruiser that actually makes sense because paying above retail just, I don't know, that doesn't make any logical sense. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. I'll see you.